Alright, people. أهلا وسهلا بكم إن الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا. People, we've got an awesome, incredible dialogue awaiting us. Our esteemed and honorable learned guest, all the way from Ohio, United States, people. The profile picture right in front of you, right there, is Ustad Shaykh Luqman Ahmad, an Imam and an inspiration on the ground in America. The picture there does look incredibly lethal, a proper hitman profile right there. And I'm going to bring in the Sheikh right here. Uh, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. You are with us. Ahlan wa sahlan.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. You're too kind. الحمد لله نحمد ونستعينه ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. أهلا وسهلا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله and جزاك الله خيرا for having me on your show finally.
No, it's an absolute an honor, really, and a pleasure to have you here, Sheikh. Just for our viewers, just today's show, I think I was having some issues with Facebook, so it's just being streamed on YouTube for now. So, I mean, many of you are on YouTube anyway, so cool. I will later on put up a link to Facebook, and I will put it up on the Sheikh's
Absolutely.
page as well.
Absolutely.
Sheikh, so what's the situation on the ground over there? I know that there's there's a lot of fuss around due to coronavirus in relation to shutting masjids down. There's, people, a lot of mayhem, a lot of confusion. Tell us all about it, Sheikh.
Well, to be honest with you, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, you know, um, we deal a lot as American imams. We tend to want to deal with situational reality, with respect to our religion, with respect to our laws, with respect to major decisions. So there was a major decision to completely padlock all of the masajid, or as many as that came under that jurisdiction, where there's really no jurisdiction, but there was a decision made to padlock masajid in the United States of America. And so the majority of them are closed shut with no activity whatsoever. And even in the Toledo metropolitan area, all the masajid are shut, no activity, some online activity. Our masjid in Toledo, Ohio, the Toledo Masjid of Islam, actually we remained open. We still have Jum'ah, and we still have, because we feed people like 8 times a month, and we have other social service programs going on that people depend on. So a decision was made for us to keep the masjids open, but also in recognition of the corona pandemic, to take certain precautions and certain modifications as to occupancy, the number of people that can be inside the masjid at any given time, spacing, the availability of masks, gloves, and things like that, that were in keeping with, CDC recommendations as far as social distancing. But the idea, one of the things that was presented to me about, when I was asked about the closing masajid, is that if we had closed our mosque,
Yeah.
then that would have meant that there would be no mosque in the metropolitan area of Toledo, that there would be no place where the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned in his houses. Okay, so I actually started a campaign, to open up masajid, to kind of get boards of masajid and imams to reconsider their decision, because as Muslims, and this is my view, that as Muslims we still have an obligation to when we make major decisions like this, because this is a new decision. This has never happened before in the history of Islam, where you had uh, the Masajid padlocked globally for weeks and perhaps months at a time. This never happened. And so when you make these kind of decisions and you still have the intellectual and spiritual obligation to, number one, think it through. Number two, you have to think about the repercussions that happens because of that. You have to think about all of the other auxiliary activities that go on with masajid being open that won't go on now. For example, you're talking about tarawih, you're talking about i'tikaf, you're talking about iftar, you're talking about salat al-jum'ah, you're talking about a prayer in congregation, you're talking about people taking the shahada, you're talking about counseling, you're talking about a lot of other activities that when you shut down masajid, those activities are curtailed or completely abandoned temporarily as well. So um, I really felt that the decision, although absolutely well intended and well within the boundaries of Sharia law, considering it is a rukhsa, a dispensation, a rukhsa Sharia, meaning that you make a contingency ruling based upon condition. And so
Okay.
I'm not saying, astaghfirullah, they closed masajid. No, there was a legal reason according to our laws, following Kitab and Sunnah, to close masajid. But that same dispensation, this is my point. That
Yeah.
same dispensation under the law, that rukhsa that allows you to modify a religious activity based upon your circumstances, that also goes for uh, making a reevaluation of that decision and see if there's some midway between completely closing the masajid and and having full throttle. There's a midway that would have been in keeping with the health concerns, with the CDC, with social spacing. Like
So
so, yeah.
what would that middle way be, Sheikh, as a suggestion?
Well,
What could be such a middle way?
well, the middle way, and what we've done in our masjid and other people have done is that number one, we keep the masjid open so that the remembrance of Allah is still going on in those houses, because the remembrance of Allah in His houses is a right, R-I-T-E, and Allah says, وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Whoever considers these activities to be great, this part of the. So what we did, we have our masjid open for the prayers, but we limit the amount of people who are going to pray in the masjid. We limit spacing. On Jum'ah, the amount of people has always been less than 20 people, and when they and we 20 people, we have a fairly large masjid. 20 people sitting to listen to the khutbah, that's about, they're about 15 feet apart, and so we had that. And then we also have, when we pray, that we pray in no more than clusters of 10. Usually
Okay.
it's 8 or 7. So you'll have 7 people praying over here, and then you have a gap in the line of about 10 feet, and you have 7 other people praying over here. And instead of having our rows one after another, we skip rows. So even when we pray the prayer, which usually takes about all of maybe 7, 6, 7 minutes, and it's not a prolonged period of time. And also during the prayer, people's mouths are shut.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did, we looked at the professional, and we looked at the health directives from the CDC, from the state health agencies in our state. We looked at what the president's recommendation from his health team. We looked at all those together, and we saw a clear way where we can have some limited activity in our masjid while still maintaining the preservation of health according to a reasonable standard. So if a person goes to the masjid, he's less likely, just by virtue of the numbers and proximity and interactiveness, he's less likely to be exposed to a virus than he would in the masjid, because even after Jum'ah, instead of people gathering, talking, no, people get up and leave.
Yeah.
So and then a lot of people wear masks, and we also provide masks. Well, the masks are gone. People take the masks, take them home, but masks, gloves, bacteria, and um, we also sanitize the masjid before and after every Salat Jum'ah. So when I'm done the khutbah and when I'm getting ready to leave out, brothers are already sanitizing the rug. They sanitize it before we come. So my position, from a Sharia perspective, it was that, like I said before, based upon the hadith where the Prophet said, "Ma nahaytukum anhu fajtanibu, wa ma amartukum bihi fa'tu minhu mastata'tum." This is whatever I have forbade you from doing, stay away from it, and whatever I have commanded you to do, do of it what you are able. And we know, you know this, that from the basis of our usul, from usul, the foundations of our legal philosophy in Islam is that if their action is wajib, if something is incumbent upon you,
Mm-hmm.
then if you cannot do it all, then you're still obligated to do of it what you are able. So it's like if you can't find water, you can do tayammum. So it's like, so to make a jump from having the masjids open for full services to completely shutting down the masjid. To
Okay.
me, it's almost like saying, I can't find water, so I'm not going to pray. No, you can't find water. You can do the next best thing. You can do tayammum. Or I can't pray standing up, so I'm not going to pray at all. No, according to the Sharia law, if you can't pray standing up, you pray sitting down. I can't pray sitting down, so I'm not going to pray. So it's like we took the rukhsa, which is valid. I'm not even condemning anybody who people, imams and amirs and boards of trustees of masajid, they make decisions that I am absolutely certain they felt was in their best interest. I have no doubt about that. So I'm not talking about people's intention, but I'm talking about law. I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
still, despite because the presence of a pandemic does not give us the authority to completely dispense with our religious laws where applicable. That was my point. And so that there wasn't too much discussion about that. And that was my, I had kind of issues with
Sure.
that. Uh, you
I
know,
mean, part of this, and extending from it, or this extends from the source, that you feel that there isn't enough dialogue
yeah.
in the community, especially spanning across Muslim communities. What else? What would you feel? I mean, this is very imminent. It's something very immediate. It's something that's happening right now all across the world. But generally, what are some broader dialogues that ought to be had in your discussion, in your opinion, and are not being had?
Well, I think that, and I'm only speaking for the United States.
Yeah,
Okay, I
sure.
think I've been to London a couple times.
Hmm.
It's cold when it's raining. So I have very little knowledge of your culture in your country, but in our country, number one, Americans in general are they're more pragmatists than ideologues. We're pragmatists. So she's upstairs hiding from you. I got my kids here. So I think I don't know. You have to look for her. But I'm talking to people. Say salam alaikum. Say salam real quick. Okay, now you gotta go.
Assalamu alaikum.
No, no. I just think that, okay, we are on a precipice of a kind of a new civilizational leap. I think and I hope, because historically, in the
Mhm.
United States of America, we do not have, as Muslims, the type of open, transparent dialogue across ideologies, across political views and inclinations that we have as Americans. So, as a regular American, as a Joe Muslim American, just put Islam to the side for a moment. You know, there's conversations. There was conversations in the Catholic Church about closing the church, and there was differences, and they discussed it. And they said, well, hey, okay, the church is closed, but I know pastors that were having they were having a Sunday a mass in the parking lot. He said, okay, listen, well, everybody come in the parking lot, don't get out your car, and we put a loudspeaker, we're going to do it that way. Some were having drive-through. Some were having mass, but they, instead of putting uh, the little wafer on your tongue with your hand, you take it and put it with your own. So they, you know, most of the churches and church leaders that I know of, very few said we're just going to shut down the church. Goodbye. We see you when it's over, and that seemed to what happened in Muslim communities. So it's not. There are issues that we need to talk about, but
such as what? I mean, from a greater perspective, what are some dialogues that need to be had here?
You have to both talk about
Okay.
race. You know,
race. And this is something that you're very passionate and very kind of involved with. This kind of dialogue.
Because there's, number one, we have to talk about race because we're Muslims and we do have a racial problem within Muslim America. That there's no doubt about that. The research, I've done studies, I've done polls, my own Lotus Tree polls, where 97% of Black American Muslims believe that there is racial discrimination within Muslim America. And even I haven't polled immigrant and non-Black Muslim, but there's a high recognition of that, and it's a very, very difficult topic to discuss because, especially since 9/11, there has been a push to present a certain sanitized narrative of American Muslims to the American public. But the problem here is that Americans, we're pretty savvy when it comes to politics. We're pretty savvy when it comes to race issues because we have dealt with race as an issue that we've debated, we've talked about, we've legislated about it, we've fought about it, people died about it. We had a civil war that was largely about the issue of race. So when you are in America as a religious group, right, say Muslim, we're a religious group, and you do not directly confront the realities of race and racism in your own religious group, then there's an automatic lack of a moral credibility on the part of because the basic understanding of Americans is that if your religion is not addressing race directly, then you know what, you're more of a political group than a religion, or we're not going to look for you for guidance. That's not to say people don't come into Islam. Allah guides whom He pleases, and people do convert to Islam. But America as a people, like politically, we're going to invite that local imam to come in and give the invocation because we're still dealing with religious pluralism, and so we're trying to give everybody a voice. But no, we don't. As Americans do not want to hear the religious beliefs of a people who claim that they are people of God, but they have not addressed the issue of race and racism when our own Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in the beginning of Islam, one of the first issues that he addressed, and we know that through Sirah, was race. He addressed it because any prophet cannot be a legitimate prophet if he acknowledges or he maintains the theory that one race is better than the other. And so the prophet fought with the racial issue for much of his prophethood, but he started from the beginning. He said, Abu Bakr, listen, people who say La ilaha illallah, free them. I want you to take your money and go free every last one of them. Yeah. And he freed his own slaves. And most of his Ahlul Bayt in the beginning was black. In the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah, he said that, I saw the Prophet ﷺ, and with him was a man, a boy, a woman, and 5 slaves. That was like one of the first that's in Sahih Bukhari. That's one of the first snapshots. So I'm just saying that it's a difficult issue. I mean,
and the African American community, that the Muslim community, it's an incredibly significant portion of Muslims in America. It's not like in the UK, converts to Islam. I mean, although there are many, but they are still, very, quite small in number in proportion to the rest of the Muslim community. Whereas in America, we're talking perhaps a third of all Muslims. Is that correct?
Well, actually, we don't really know for sure because
I had read somewhere about 30-something%.
It's about a third of the population going back to maybe 1970 or more. But there has been recent research, like by the Pew Research Center, and it was kind of financed by some large Islamic organizations, and that concluded that the Black American Muslim population uh, uh, in the United States of America constitutes about 13% of the overall Muslim population. So we're losing numbers, but still, that statistic is kind of skewed because, and listen to this. I mean, yeah, I'm into this. I'm into Hawk. Let's deal with the truth.
Yeah, yeah.
Deal with the
Real
truth.
talk,
So,
real talk all the way.
and so, according to the same study, and you can get that study online. It's a Pew. It's called the Mosque Portrait or Portrait of the Mosque, and it's the same study. They were talking about converts who leave Islam, and so in this study, they concluded that for every 10 people that come into Islam, 10 people leave Islam. However, their estimation of what constitutes leaving Islam is different from what we know on the ground. For example, a person may, and I was born and raised Muslim, by the way, and I've been Imam for 25 years, and I've been teaching for 40 years. I mean, I look old. I look young, but I'm really old. I'm really
May Allah forever keep you young, Sheikh.
Well, yakum. But what we know as imams living in America, working on the ground, even in academia, and dealing with the situation and reality of Muslims, we know that that Muslim that people might have considered that he's left Islam or she's left Islam, we know that a great number of those have not left Islam. They've just left the body of the Muslims. And sometimes it's because of racism, because of isolation, because of not understanding, because of being marginalized or feeling being marginalized. So you have a Muslim who, on the surface, if you're doing academic study, oh, he left Islam. He's not. But if you go talk to that Muslim, that we talk to these people, we know these people. So you say, hey, I'm still Muslim, man. I still believe in Allah. I believe in the Prophet. I didn't really learn my religion because, damn, I was in the masjid. Nobody did teach me religion. They chased me out of the masjid. I look funny. I'm an ex-con, or maybe I'm too black, or maybe I'm not. I didn't have enough money. I was at a rich masjid, and everybody there drive Mercedes, and I was coming on my bike, and I couldn't. So it's different reasons. Some people have left Islam. That's very true. But Black American Muslims still constitute a tremendous force of Islam in America. I mean, without doubt, and that's despite the marginalization. That's despite the racism. And I'm not saying here to you, Shaykh, that all immigrant Muslims are racist. That is certainly not true. There are many people of all backgrounds who understand the racist tint or the marginalization of Black American Muslims.
I've felt, just real talk, that I'm going to be honest, that I felt that especially within the Muslim communities, the kind of, even if they're now born and raised in, let's say, the UK or the US or Europe, but of migrant kind of origin, so let's say the Desi, the Arab kind of background, that, being real, that there is an immense amount of discrimination. And even if it's not one of projected hatred necessarily, but it's one of exclusion to opportunity. So it's not that, let's say, they see a convert or a black Muslim coming, that they're going to feel that, oh, we hate black people. Yeah. But what they will do is keep the real things always to themselves. That they will exclude opportunities of, let's say, not really include them in so many things. That I myself have felt this when I've seen, interacted with, whether it's a masajid or Islamic centers or things like this. And I'd imagine it's exponentially kind of much more significant in the US, because here converts are still a small proportion of Muslims. They're not that huge in number, but in the US it's huge. Yeah. So I remember coming across there was an annual Black Muslim conference set up by some of the scholars, and I spoke about it a few years back, saying that, I think that I felt that it was a great initiative, because in the sense that I felt that it's the other Muslim communities are not going to really create this platform for you. So it's great that some people have kind of stepped forward, although on the same token, some people might be thinking, oh, is this kind of Pan-Africanism or pan kind of like very black nationalism, as in the Black Muslims, Nation of Islam, even though it isn't. But what are your thoughts on this, Sheikh?
Well, listen, Shaykh, let me say this first of all, that your intellectual and scholarly value with me just shot up about like 1,000%. Okay, because the fact that you hit it spot on and you have no problem talking about it in a public forum, I just want to say I have a lot of respect for you. For that.
Shukran.
And I knew that about you, and that's why I came on your show, because I knew that you know, yeah. But you hit it pretty on it. But see, here's the thing: racism is, so I'm now let's look at it in a spiritual Sharia sort of spin, okay? Because I think that everything that we do, especially as imams, scholars of Islam, we have to spin it within a Sharia, a Islamic kind of context.
Of
In that
course.
context, of course, racism in Muslim America is nothing like the racism that existed in the slave trade or Jim Crow laws. I mean, there's some parallel examples, but it's nothing like that. In Islam, it's more like a just like you said, just like you're black and you're lesser than, but you my brother in Islam, but I'm in charge, right? It's more like that, and so it's just that racism comes in different strains because race is one of the premier diseases that even brought Shaitan himself down. I mean, he was brought down. Basically said, "Hey, man, I'm a fire dude. He's the mud dude, right?" And so, yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, so it it's reasonable to assume that Shaitan, if he wants to undermine Muslim civilization in a country like America, where man, if you don't check race, man, it'll eat you. This country knows that. Even white racists know, hey, we need to deal with this racism thing because we just can't be racist because it comes back on as we're even losing. We're losing talent. We want to at least get the talented blacks. So yeah, but the thing is, it works at the heart of a lot of what Muslim Americans are trying to achieve, instead of in such as like fighting against Islamophobia, getting greater recognition of Muslim as a viable spiritual civilization and moral credibility. And in America, if your religious community doesn't have moral credibility, it doesn't mean you can't exist. This is America. We're a secular country that separates church and state. And if you're a Muslim, especially if you're spending money and you're contributing to our economy, we don't care where you're from. You could be whatever kind of Muslim you want to be. You're paying taxes, you're opening up businesses, you're paying money. Of course, this is America. But in terms of moral credibility, it affects the moral credibility of not just the immigrant Muslims who who have kind of like the upper hand in terms of social economics in America over Black American Muslims, but then you have other things that are extensions of that racial kind of marginalization, such as the Muslim-owned liquor stores in Black neighborhoods, which are it's like that's a pandemic.
Is that a common phenomenon? Is it?
That is as common uh, as that's as common as you can get
Wow.
because
Okay.
listen, the estimates of money that Muslim owned liquor stores pump, I think the figure was close like $300 million a day out of Black neighborhoods. And you go to any Black neighborhood in the
Okay.
United States of America, you go to any place where the state does not control liquor sales. Now, I'm from Pennsylvania, where the state controls liquor sales, but Ohio, California, New York, Wisconsin, Atlanta, where the state doesn't control liquor stores and liquor can be sold at your local, corner store, liquor, beer, weed materials, all that kind of stuff, lottery, you have a overwhelming disproportionate amount of Muslims who own those stores, and so that's kind of your your that's like you're exploiting the poor and black communities by facilitating the very social disease that contribute to their direct decline. And I'm gonna tell you something. If a Muslim lives in a black neighborhood, well, most likely he or she is affected by the same, social economic conditions and the same blight and the same despair. You have it, and the same unfair laws and criminal justice system that sucks people out of the neighborhood. That Muslim is still subject to the same thing that everybody else in that black neighborhood. That's why you have you have like tons of Muslims in jail. And so that alone, that's a
How
civilizational
just
great conversation.
expand or just unpacking that slightly, shit.
Yeah.
How does the alcohol, out of curiosity, let's say selling alcohol? I mean, first of all, I had no idea that it was that Muslim-owned liquor stores
Oh
were
yeah, man.
such kind of in such proportion. But how does that impact the kind of the negative? How does that produce a negative impact on race relations
Well,
within intra-Muslim
well,
community?
because it's not just alcohol. It's alcohol, lottery ticket, drug paraphernalia. You can go to any black neighborhood in America and you can go to a local store and buy alcohol, cigarettes, drug paraphernalia, crack pipe, meth pipes, crack bags, the bag you're crack with, uh, pornography. There's not so much pornography as now because it's online, but you can get that and you can clearly see that the guy behind that counter, the guy that owns that store, is a Muslim. Sometimes they have Muhammad and Allah right there. Sometimes every Muslim you might see a woman with a hijab or half hijab on, and so the people in the neighborhoods know that. So well, the alcohol itself, somebody's going to sell it if Muslims don't sell it, but if the Muslim is contributing to the very ills that other Muslims from those neighborhoods are trying to stop, it's like it's like every time we go 5 yards, we're being pushed back 20 yards. And so that over a period of time, it contributes to the civilizational decline of those people. You can and so that's why in those neighborhoods, those sort of neighborhoods, you very rarely see any masjid built from the ground up by a convert community. You don't, because to support in the neighborhood, because this is, I'm telling you real talk here. So the perception in black neighborhoods of Islam, people do convert to Islam and people may have a general respect for Muslims, but they look at black Americans like, you guys are stupid to even be a Muslim because your brother, Muslim, is a dude that I buy my lottery tickets, I buy my liquor from, I borrow money from. He's the guy that, sometimes I buy my weed from your dude. Your dude. I'm buying my weed from your dude, and you want me to be your religion? You are clearly a subordinate of that guy because people who own these local stores, they're kind of looked at as kingpins in the neighborhood because you take a poor neighborhood, you got a business.
It's coming back to that. It's coming back to akhlaq and character.
Yeah.
I mean, and with the drug thing, that is actually a very similar phenomenon in the UK. That unfortunately, it is kind of like Muslims who appear up so prominently in when it comes to drugs and that whole world of dealing drugs and doing things like this. It's usually a very Muslim dominated scene.
Well, here's the thing: is that you have to keep in mind that that the person who converts to Islam, right?
Yeah.
Number one, he's the guest, our guest. He's the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's someone Allah sent because it's not like, we're making these people become Muslim. Allah picks, okay, you be Muslim, you be Muslim. Allah says, Man yuridillahu an yahdihi yashrah sadruhu lil Islam. So we know that, and that presents new civilizational blood in the Ummah. So under Islamic law, there is a certain sort of decorum and responsibility that the people who come into Islam, I don't know, somebody, I'll find them after I finish talking. I'm almost done. He don't care. He has Abu. This is what I need. So, but there's a certain civilizational responsibility that the people who are already Muslim have on those people who come into Islam. And the Prophet said, alayhi salatu salam, bashiru wa la tanafiru, fa innama bu'ithtum mubashirina وَمَا بُعِثْتُمْ مُعَسِّرِينَ أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said, give glad tidings and do not push people away from the religion, because you were dispatched as a people who give glad tidings and not as a people who chase people away. So the reason why these issues are important, because not just because of the, you know, of the consequences of racism or racial politics or the skewed economics, in our neighborhoods, but they have Islamic legal repercussions. And so, like, my position, Shaykh, is this: is that we have to, as Muslims, we have to have civilizational grade discussions. That's just it. We have to have, like, we're talking civilizational stuff right now, you and I.
Yeah, of course.
Now, imagine if our conversation was amplified, where imams in America is having this discussion. People are saying, because that will lead to a certain amount of enlightenment among Muslim America. Because I mean, we can't be in America as Muslims, and the highlight of our life is that you don't hate me, is that we defeat Islamophobia. That can't be our civilizational plateau. Well, at least at least they like this. That cannot be.
Is that the way forward, Sheikh? What is that the solution? What are the possible solutions for this dialogue?
Well, there's a couple solutions in my
Okay.
view.
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the solution, I think, the onus is on the Black American Muslim community themselves, because, listen, I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But if I was born in Palestine, if I was born in Syria, and I just came out of a war situation, and I was, born in, Afghanistan, and they just destroyed my village, and I got to America for some reason, man, I'm going to try to make it work. Now, I'm going to try to do the right thing, but, it's not like all immigrants sell liquor stores. I mean, immigrants come in and participate in viable business and activities, academic activities, that's a benefit to our country. And so you can't really say, hey man, there's a certain amount of success here, and we were slaves, and you can't do that. At some point, the Black American community, who say that they're Muslim, still have an obligation too for their own civilizational preservation. So there was a time in years, say 7, 8 years ago, when I first started to write about racial, maybe 2002, I started to write about racial politics in Muslim America, right?
Okay.
And here's the funny thing: Allah says, please stop, Mary, please stop there. Go somewhere with that, please. They're just showing up. So Allah says, فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And I'm going to tell you something about Muslims. Of course, you know this, that Muslims, I don't care what color you are, where you're from, your background, man, believer is a believer, man. A believer is a believer. A believer is a believer. So you can't lump racism on the doorstep of every Muslim immigrant in America. No, there are some races, but there are many, many Muslims as well who believe, who don't know the situation. I know so many, who support Islamic causes all over. They don't care what color you're. So a lot of, I was Imam for 20 years of a masjid. There was 60% Pakistani origin. 60%.
Okay.
Hanafi, Pakistani. So you have Muslims who, they're not racist, but you have that Black American, and this is, I don't know if you heard this term, Sheikh, the black slave, the slave mentality. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
So you do have a certain amount of slave subordinate mentality that many Black American Muslims still have. Some of it prior to Islam. Some of it happened in Islam. You know, there was a fatwa issued maybe about 5, 6 years ago that like there are no scholars in America. So you had Black American Muslim believing it's impossible for a Black American to be a scholar. It's like impossible. That can't happen. You know, even some of the Sufi tariqah, I'm not knocking Sufis. I'm just saying, I'm just talking about critical race theory as it concerns our situation, reality as Muslims. So you have.
Just,
Go ahead. Yeah.
just to interrupt you there, Sheikh. For viewers or people that will be watching this, this is a term that comes up quite a bit. Could you define that term? I mean, what does this mean? The critical race theory.
Well,
What do you understand from it, or what? Yeah, that's a better way. What do you understand from it?
critical race theory is it's a it's a theological concept that examines the position of race in of race and culture uh, and society, races of culture and society as it relates to race, law, or power. So it's like, what is the role of race in a society or a culture with respect to law, power, and their culture? What is
Okay,
the role of race?
sure.
And so, but critical race theory is more of a way for academics to talk about racism and get funded for having these long dialogues about racism, but while actual solutions of the consequences of racism are not done. So, like I said, Americans are, you have your theorists and you have your pragmatists, but most of the work that's been done in this country on racism has been from a more pragmatic part. It's like, okay, listen, you can talk all day about racism, but what are you going to do about it? You can talk all day about racism, Muslim America, but what are you doing about it? Because people have suffered from it. There are people who have left Islam. There are people who've been traumatized. You have. This is a theory of mine that I brought up. This is something
Yeah,
I've been
please.
working on. Is post conversion traumatic stress syndrome, PCTSD, because of race and because of the marginalization or intellectual marginalization of Black American converts to Islam, there has not been study on post conversion traumatic stress syndrome or stress disorder that people who converted to Islam, the psychological nuances that occurred with them, within their families, within their children, rejection, isolation, all kind of stuff. And I have like so many. I
And
got like
just to
reams of
be
testimonials.
clear,
Yeah,
Sheikh, are you saying that this, this kind of trauma that is being
yeah.
experienced, is this, you're saying this is not, or is this from it's due to the conversion, but from the Muslims, or from their
Yeah,
external
listen,
factors, or from everything?
I have about maybe 350 personal testimonials of Muslims, white, Black, Hispanic, who have converted to Islam. So the Muslim converts to, I'm Muslim now. Okay, so you're somewhere at big masjid, mostly maybe Pakistani, Arab, whatever, maybe Black, but say somewhere you're in college students that you, hey, I want to become Muslim. You go to the local $1 million masjid to become Muslim. They give you a Quran. Here's your Quran, brother. They give you a prayer. Mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. But because you're not of that culture, and because maybe you're Black, maybe you got dreadlocks or something,
Yeah.
okay, and so you're kind of left on your own. So, or say you're a Muslim, you go into a masjid, right? And you might have seen this happen yourself. Yes, you can, son. Go ahead. Y'all can get all this stuff now because they know I'm talking on. They do that, okay?
Opportunists.
Yeah, they are opportunities. Like he's talking, he's into it right now. Let's get what we can. At least you got to take that phone over there. Take it, move it. I can't hear. So if that person is not received with the proper decorum, kabul, brotherhood, maybe he's struggling with his salat, and this is important to him. Like, I'm Muslim, I'm going to try to make Muslim. Brother, he can't get through salat because they keep correcting him every time he says a verse in Fatiha, and so he starts to feel less than. So when you come into Islam and you read about Islam, brotherhood. Oh, we all say, mashallah. Oh, I want to become Muslim. And you come in to see that we have not really self-actualized the teachings of Islam to a civilizational degree as a whole. That can have a traumatic effect on a Muslim. I have a I know people. I mean, I do a lot of counseling. I have a brother, close friend of mine. I'm not gonna mention his name, but he's white. You know, he became Muslim 30 years ago. You know, and he was a gifted student. I mean, graduates. I mean, he was like a real smart guy, come from a kind of well-to-do family. He wasn't out of jail, and he became Muslim, man. And he bought the whole thing. He bought, man, Islam. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm doing, you know. And so sometimes Muslims they go through a phase of Pakistani now, and you go through I want to be Arab now, and you might get on the African thing, you know. But you're really not finding your niche. And you know, virtually everybody who became Muslim during this time, he's seen them come and go. He held fast, but it really had a really serious psychological and spiritual effect on this guy. I mean, he's a friend of mine. I mean, he writes it, he comes on my page, and there's others, there are hundreds, and so that is your post-conversion traumatic stress disorder right there. The only reason why it's not studied as a discipline is because we're black. That's great. That's just because we're black. Just as anytime you have um, um, a legitimate psychological study that needs to be done, that you can definitely see the effect of, and we're going to do PTSD on this corona thing. People say, oh, I was in corona, man, I lost my business, man. Your insurance is going to pay for, man, you to go see a psychologist about the fact that you lost your job through corona, and you was in the house hunkered down, and you didn't know what was going to happen, and the trauma from that. So we don't study our own trauma, and so because of the civilizational irrelevancy. It's all connected. And now I've started studies on that particular.
And
Tried to
it's
get funding.
and I would feel, I mean, I know it's very, but this is just, just being real,
Yeah.
that I would feel that it's, in my perspective, unquestionable that talent aside, that obviously talent is always a crucial factor, but that there are certain people who will attain certain limelight, they'll be given certain kind of, and people that I may personally love, and adore and listen to and follow. But the truth is, uh, it's if they were black, let's say they've converted or whatever, but they're white, they will get sometimes like a great pedestal, and they will, people will listen to them and Shaykh such and such or Ustad such and such. But if it was a black person, although it's possible still that they attain that imamhood, but I feel it's so less likely.
Yeah.
That it's kind of so handicapped in that favor. This is my perspective from social media.
No, this you're absolutely right. That's just from anecdotal evidence.
Mm.
I mean, you know, so yeah, your perspective is what you see actually happens, and it tends to have an effect on people's self-esteem, on their love for Islam, or they get confused. I know Allah's the God, I know the Prophet is the Prophet, but why? You know, and they get confused. And but as far as solution is concerned, right?
Yeah.
There's different paths towards solution. My position as an imam
Mm-hmm.
and as a scholar and as someone who's been studying Islam and intersectionality of Islam in American society for like 30 years, like really, really doing the field work, that a big part of the solution is creating awareness amongst Black Americans, Black American Muslims. Seriously. Because listen, you have to look at the brass tacks of Islam. Still, you have to keep in mind, not all blacks, but you have to keep in mind the 70% households, the fatherless households in our community, the like the availability of drugs and alcohol, heroin and crack right in our neighborhoods, the crack epidemic. You have to understand the music, the lifestyle, all those things that have affected the Black American community has affected the Black American Muslim community.
Of course. Yeah.
So even we talk about civil, listen, for the average immigrant, not everybody. I'm not saying one is
Yeah.
better than the other. I'm just saying you're talking about two different
Yeah,
civilizational histories that have
Sheikh,
intersected, and they all are going to have their,
if
you
I
know,
could throw
event.
a very controversial question here, that
Yeah,
sometimes, and I'm not saying I agree, but I'm just putting it out there for you, for your thoughts to come back to it. You see, you've highlighted these things that look, there's a great sense of impoverishment in the black
yeah,
community. There's a sense of a drug problem, crime problem, the rap maybe fueling that, broken homes or single parent kind of scenarios, a mass amount of them. Uh, some people may, I mean, wrongly say, or whatever, just being real, putting the question there that,
yeah.
look, that why is this not a self-created problem? That are the black people, the black community is not responsible for their own problems? This is a question that people would put. I mean, what would you, how would you respond to that?
Well, you know, I'm an intellectual jihadist, right?
Yeah. That's it. Own
So
it.
just in terms of intellectual honesty, I have to lay credence to a part of that perception because you can't have this type of civilizational decline in a free country and still blame, like you can't, you know like you can't live in America and blame the white man for everything when you have the freedom to make your own choice about this and that and that's not. So that perception is partially uh, is partially validated. So I'm not because in order to have a real discussion, you have to accept that when people make a good point, and so I understand that perspective, and that's even other imams still have that view. Sometimes like, listen, hold up, man, listen, you can't blame the immigrants for this and that and that because you're making the decision to do this and that and that. You're making a decision not to build a community. You're making a decision not to spend on your own masjid. You're making the decision not to pay your imam, not to pay for this, not to build that, not to be committed, not to sign on the dotted line. So blacks make decisions, black American Muslims that is, make decisions that contribute to their own uh, uh, spiritual demise and destruction just based upon Sharia law. So law says, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying
Yeah,
that
of
we
course.
all are Muslims. So
Of
that's
course, of
why
course.
the verse, so the verse, the verse, you probably know this, that where Allah says, Inna hadi ummatun, Inna hadi ummatukum ummatun wahida, فَأَنَا رَبَّكُمْ فَاتَّقُونَ. That ummah in this verse doesn't mean ummah like ummah, it means sharia. According to the majority of the ulama, it's like, Inna hadi shari'atukum shari'atun wahida, because if we look at things from the Islamic legal perspective of Quran and Sunnah and law, then everybody's kind of issues come out and everybody has to be kind of equal because, hey, I'm Muslim, you Muslim, we all got to face the law. But if we're going to exclude parts of our Sharia in addressing our problems, and say, I'm going to address this problem, but I'm not going to really look at it from a Sharia perspective, I'm going to adopt critical race theory, something I can hide in, then of course you're going to always have this civilizational, you're going to always have this civilizational malaise. And
Yeah.
that's my.
I
But
mean,
yeah, what you said,
and just
I
on
absolutely agree.
that point, I was going to
Yeah,
say that I mean, it's undeniable that the kind of the handicapped ground that the black community is starting from anyway. It's because they're starting from a ground with so much baggage, so much
exactly.
victimization of the past, a stereotypical kind of perspective in society, then ghettoized kind of communities that exist in America, especially. So it is already an uneven ground. I mean, from my perspective, I would see that. But I wanted to put that question because people do ask that question. I mean, we
That's a
see,
good question. That's a valid question.
because we see even within, like, let's say the Asian, I mean, we call it Asian here as in the South Asian, the Indian Pakistani kind of communities, we see the difference between the kind of Pakistani communities in the UK and in the US. And
Yeah,
there's a huge difference because those that migrated here came from rural backgrounds. They were mainly people from villages. And those that went to America were mainly city folk. They were already educated and professionals, and hence a lot of the American Pakistani communities will already be very middle class, very upper middle class, some of them. Whereas here, they will be clearly working class, the outright majority of them. They're not going to be. And then they've kind of created pocket ghetto-like communities here.
Yeah.
So obviously, the situation I understand in America is much more drastic. The whole racism thing is much more in your face.
Well, you guys are more down to earth over there. See, I mean, it's highly unlikely that I would be talking to an imam or a sheikh in America on this topic that's being broadcast live because he will lose his job tomorrow. They're going to say, you know what, sheikh, you can't talk like that because that's embarrassing. I mean, you're obviously independent, and I've known other, British Muslims. Y'all rough. No, you know that. You guys are rough like us. You guys are rough because even British society, you guys argue in your parliament. Like, yeah, you bloody blah, blah, blah. And we don't do that. Our Congress, like, decorum. You guys are, you guys are fighting in your parliament. Yeah, dude, you so he's a running, he's a disgrace. Blah, 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 blah. I hear you guys with the wigs on, right? Like lions, right?
Yeah.
So so the culture is different. I mean,
no, but I feel that these conversations are so important. There are certain imams that I do follow on social media, African American imams, and amongst them, I remember maybe about 2 years back or something, but there was this whole incident. I don't remember the details of the incident, but I do remember that this particular imam had kind of lost his job, and this was Imam Mark Manley, and I think he'd left his job, but there was Mark Manley, yeah, and I think is a great person, really down to earth. I mean, his things are usually just very, but it was this whole thing about just that culture not fitting, and this whole kind of the committee, they have a particular outlook, and if you discuss certain things, it's very problematic, and we need to either make life hell, or you just leave, or we sack you. And I think this is why I was asking, what are the solutions? Are the solutions that you feel the black Muslim community should build its own masjids, or that it should have more dialogues? But will dialogues ever get anywhere? Do you feel that they will?
I think there's three paths towards a solution, and that we shouldn't waste time getting right to it. Number one, Black American Muslims have to recognize, and I know my writing and some of my ideas are kind of ahead of its time, but Black American Muslims have to come to the conclusion that they represent a totally new and distinct civilization. So you have to look at, if you look at yourself as listen, this is America. When we broke off from Great Britain and we fought them, we decided, hey, this is America, this is our country, this is a civilization. They didn't have the king come and tell us what to do after we won. After we kicked the British out, no offense, to you guys.
No, it's all good.
But after we kicked you dudes out, we kicked your behinds, and we sent you home across the water, and we made our own laws, and we had our own civilization, and we didn't say, what did the king think? No, what do our magistrate right here think? And so Black Americans, still, a lot of our Islam is still affected by maybe a dozen or so spheres of foreign influence that we still think, well, we're subordinate. We are a colony of the immigrant community, of the Arab community, of the Pakistani community. What did the Shaykh say? The Shaykh said, the Shaykh said Thanksgiving is haram. Like, the Shaykh ain't never been to grandma's house for Thanksgiving. What does he know? I mean, that's real. That's real.
That's true.
Shaykh said birthdays are haram. What are you talking about? That's one of the principal ways of showing ihsan to your parents in America. And so we have that. We're still kind of coming out of that. I mean, I wrote a book about that, but can I promote my book?
Of course, please do.
I wrote a book called Double-Edged Slavery.
Double-Edged Slavery.
Yes, I don't push it that much, but it talks about the colonial disposition of Black American Muslims, and I also wrote another book called, you're gonna like this one. It's not as bad as it sounds. It's called The Devil's Deception of the Modern Day Salafi Sect, and they're both available on Amazon. But it's not. I
remember I think an old talk by Sheikh Faisal Decades ago,
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah.
I didn't take well, yeah. My position about the Salafi is that you and I know we follow the minhaj of the Salaf in our Aqidah, in our minhaj, in our law. You're a
Of
Maliki,
course.
you got to be, But Salafi minhaj and the modern day Salafi is two different things. And so the modern day Salafiyah
And you
has
yourself,
basic,
for the viewers, you're
yeah.
Shafi'i in
I'm a
fiqh.
Shafi, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, of course.
And so but the book was really dealing. It started off with people writing me letters about the Salafis. They're saying this. I said, no, this is not gonna last. This is crazy. And it just all these letters that I'm responding to emails of my friend in Philadelphia, and it ended up being a book because I started to examine it from an Aqidah perspective, from a Sharia perspective, from a Usuli perspective. And yeah, we follow the Salaf, but we're not, you don't have to. So, as a solution, please be quiet. Don't you see me talking? Miriam, take your brother and go upstairs, please. 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 Okay, we're going to. So, my ideal and is to number one, you have to address the colonial disposition of Black American Muslim converts and white American to the greater community and to the Muslims overseas. That's number one. Number two, Black American Muslims need to strengthen their own communities. They have to realize that there's no cavalry coming for you, and I don't blame the immigrant community for not coming to help. Help because they do. They do, but there's only so much you can do when the people do not want to do for themselves. You can't just I can help you, brothers. Okay, I want to help this brother. So and so talk to, but if you're not willing to do the same hard work, because I don't care, the immigrants who come here, they work hard. They work hard. They work hard. They get married. Not necessarily everybody, but they get married. They build their families. They don't play around with it. I'm speaking as an imam who have had immigrant Muslims come to the country in the Masjids I was imam of, and been there the whole 20 years I was there. The whole time when they came from Pakistan, here I'm coming, just getting here. I've seen Pakistans come to our masjid in Sacramento and buy a house around the corner, and they only speak English. And they go to school and they open up a tire business. And there's another one split off, another tire business. Work every day from 7. I mean every day, every day, every day. You working every day, 12 hours a day, putting it in. And people come here and do that. So you can't begrudge people who take advantage of the opportunity of America. And so Black American Muslims, they have to listen. If you want to build a civilization and a community, there are things you got to do. You just can't. It just don't happen like that. Most of Sahaba, anybody else, any civilization builds them. Then we don't have leadership. You have to establish some sort of line of leadership. We can't go into Muslim America, Black American. We don't know who's in charge of anything. It operates mainly as a mob. We don't support scholars. We don't support imams. A lot of our imams don't have any money. They don't get paid. I'm telling you from my life experience. You know. But yeah, those two books. And I want to mention too, Shaykh, if with your permission,
Of course, you have
want to
absolutely.
promote something while I'm here.
Go for it, Shaykh.
The book Double-Edged Slavery, that really kind of yes, Idris. A man slapped me back of my head. Okay, I'll be right there. Hey, gotta love him. Double-Edged Slavery and The Devil's Deception of the Modern Day Salafi Sect are two of my books that are available on Amazon. I have some other coming out. On my Facebook page, which is Luqman Ahmad, I am conducting a couple of fundraising campaigns, if I may.
Excellent. Of course, go for it, Shaykh.
One of them is to lobby Masajid and board members and imams, especially with Ramadan coming. I've been lobbying, and I've got quite a few to open up. I've been lobbying Masajid to open their mosques using the guidelines that we kind of laid out that are within keeping with Sharia law, with keeping with civil law, with the CDC recommendations, and keeping with the safety of the masjids, because people are like going berserk with these masjids being closed. I mean, I'm getting emails every day. Imam, I'm depressed, because people normally can go to the masjid and find some solace. Okay, so that's my other solution, I've been raising money to do that because as an imam, of course, listen, we suffer too from this economic
Of
downturn. We
course,
don't
of course.
behave like that. We ain't got we don't have it like that.
Absolutely.
I'm not. I'm just saying, as imams, we're not supported, and when the masjids close and nobody's coming to the masjid, then that affects our little bit of
Of
salaries that we
course, of
may
course.
have. And
No.
so people
I
are
mean,
welcome to support me as an imam. My Facebook
absolutely.
page
People
says that.
do go to Sheikh's page. I will as well once I do upload this to Facebook, because today I had some issues with Facebook. I will tag you in as well, Sheikh. So people do look for the Sheikh's profile. Otherwise, you'll find the tag on my page, and do support the Sheikh in his efforts and get hold of those books. They sound awesome. Sheikh, I wanted to pick your
Yeah,
brains on something. Um, like you mentioned about one of your books about the Salafis, and you're speaking in line with race relations and just the perspective. You see, I want to kind of pick your thoughts on this. A few sessions ago, I was speaking with an Ustada from America as well, Chicago, and she mentioned a concept of soft Islam and hard Islam. But I mean, just holding on to this notion, soft and hard Islam. And by hard Islam,
listen, go upstairs. Go
and
ahead.
by hard Islam, I mean this kind of like this everything is very rigid, dogmatic, kind of like Salafi-esque. Whether they're
Yeah,
Salafi or not, so they could be Deobandi or Salafi, but something very harsh, carries a uniform, it carries, like a very
yeah,
kind of cult-like mentality.
yeah.
Do you feel that people like converts from the black community, let's say, because they come from, sometimes, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but sometimes in
Yeah.
America they may be coming from a very harsh background, ex-cons, or thug lifestyle or something. Are they heavily drawn towards a hard Islam? Is that kind of like they psychologically are driven to something, that they need something very dogmatic and harsh, and um, do you feel that is the case, or is that not? What are your
I think
thoughts on this?
it is the case to a certain degree, and to varying degrees. Alhamdulillah, I would say this, Sheikh. Like I said, I was raised Muslim, and I'm 61. I'm 61. Okay,
You're rocking it, Sheikh, at 61.
I'm 61. But listen, I grew up in the Darul Islam movement. My father was an imam. My cousin was an imam. In the Darul Islam and post Darul Islam movement, we're always Sunni Muslims, and we're very much connected to the Muslims going back to the 1940s and the 1930s. There's
Wow.
a continuous silsila of knowledge of Sunni Orthodox Muslims from the 1930s all the way to now. Unfortunately, my family's five-generation Muslims, so we've had a chance over a period of time, going on in the Khaldun's theory, you will be able to observe certain anomalies and certain nuances in any civilization if you're able to look at it from a generational perspective. If you look at it, this and that, and so Black American Muslims come from a varying background.
You see,
But
and the reason I'm asking this, Sheikh, by
yeah,
the
no,
way,
I get it.
is
I get
because
it.
sometimes, like, you see, I have like, I see like how I teach my kind of teachings, and sometimes I see profiles and friends on Facebook, let's say from Muslims, African American. Now I will see that I think sometimes, like, let's say they ask me some opinions or something, I think like my opinions might be too soft for them, because they're not like, it's not what they are looking for. Like, maybe they need a very regimental, whereas I'm maybe too wishy-washy for them, and I'm too kind of like, so I feel that, do they generally, is this background what's
Yeah.
kind of pushing them towards this? And yeah, so that's where my question's kind of coming from.
Yeah, okay, because so now you're talking about now you're talking about cultural differences. Okay,
Hmm.
so listen, from your perspective, right? Your parents are Muslim, grandparents Muslim, family, cousins, uncles. When you guys get together for Eid, man, probably 200 y'all, your family. I mean, it's like that. It's like your cousin, I got cousins, I got your, so you got the whole family. So there's always a great degree of Islam being carried in the family, right? So you don't got to be all harsh and no. Let Uncle Muhammad be the harsh one. Let little so and so. We're all Muslims, and listen, we're not trying to have a family fight. But if you're the only Muslim in your family, you're the only one. You're just the lone dude in your family. You talk about halal food and this and that, and they smoking weed. You don't want to. So you're going to tend to be a little bit more rigid. And also because, like I said, we're a brand new civilization. The new civilizations always had that rigidity. You look at the companions of the prophets who they're converts to Islam. The first, they were like this. Abu Bakr said, "Listen, wallahi, lo man'uni iqalan كانوا يؤدوه كانوا يؤدونها. I'll fight them." He's like, dude, he said that they hold back one. I call for me. Man, we fighting. Now, somebody else after it's been, listen, let's talk about this zakat. Let's do it this way. He's like, no, you hold back zakat, I'm fighting y'all. Right? So it's a different type of thing when you're dealing with recent kufr and shirk in your, like remember when the Prophet ﷺ, when Jibril told him that the coordinates of the Kaaba, because the Kaaba has been destroyed so many times in history, that the coordinates of the Kaaba is wrong, and he said, wallahi, if it wasn't for the fact that people were hadith al-ahad fil Islam, that they weren't Muslims, I would dismantle the Kaaba and rebuild it according to the specifications of Ibrahim, and I make a door to go in and a door to go out. But he said, if I did it right now, they go crazy. What? You touched the Kaaba? Yeah, right? And so you have that kind of lean towards extremism.
Yeah, because I sometimes feel, Shaykh, that like you see, because from
it's not
here,
personal, though. It's not
no, I totally understand. You see, from my perspective, I'm sometimes like my kind of angle is mainly to Muslims who have become kind of disaffected with the kind of religiosity that is found amongst kind of like the clergy, and they thereby many of them either leave Islam or they become kind of so distanced from Islam. So sometimes, like, so when I see things, this is my lens, but I sometimes fear, just real talk, like sometimes I see, let's say I'll have certain friends online, social media, they'll ask questions, they don't have to be kind of black American Muslims, but they may be as well. But now they may see some of my fatwa, like sometimes I've said things like, I don't believe marijuana is necessarily haram. I've said that I believe it's not necessarily a good thing, but I said I don't believe it's haram. And I've said things like this. Now, to them, I fear that these things may be the last pillar that they hold on to for Islam. Like, you see, it may have the absolute opposite effect, because to these people it may destroy their faith. And I do fear that.
That person may have come from a family of drug abuse, of maybe generational drug abuse, generational addiction. So you become Muslim. Hey man, I ain't doing no weed. I'm not doing a drink. I'm not doing nothing. And so that is representative of the
of everything he left behind.
Yeah,
exactly. It kind of represents the world he's left behind, and I do feel that sometimes, and I kind of find myself in a strange place, because on one hand, I don't see some of these things as haram. I don't see them as good things, but I don't see them as haram. But let's say, or it could be things like, for example, should we wear a hat? Should we have a long beard? Should we do this? And I have a certain way. I'll be like, no, it's not necessarily like this. Like, men can wear earrings, they can do this. But I feel that on sometimes I fear that there's there's the person who this represents everything they've left, and to them I may be knocking out the final pillar, and the roof is going to collapse.
For some people, you're going to be Mr. Wishy-washy, right? Hey,
But I may
but
be kind of destroying
right,
the faith. I do find myself sometimes in a strange, I'm just being real that I do
no,
think
that's what
this.
makes you unique, Shaykh. That's what makes you unique. That's really what draws people to you is that you're real because the first ulama were real. They weren't like Imam Shafi was brought into into in, into Yemen in chains. He was like when he's coming to Yemen in chains. They ready to execute him. He was like, dude, you're gonna be executed. If it wasn't for Muhammad Shaybani who talked to the Khalifa and said, hey man. He's your relative, like his great grandfather is your great grandfather's cousin. That's how he got spared. So they were real. It was being real about the situation. But you're not going to get everybody to kind of, you know. And when you come out of the shell, which you are obviously out of the shell, you don't really, you're talking real stuff. You do get a lot of pushback, but some of it is because of preferences. Some of it because we're still, and I'm talking about you and I as Western Muslims.
Mhm.
I don't care where you're from. You grew up there.
Yeah,
You're Western.
of course. Yeah.
This your thing. Um, as Western Muslims, we're just opening this box of realism now. It's just like you're still on the ground. I'm on the ground floor of it. We're just having these kind of conversations. So
Yeah.
probably in the next generation, you'll have some sort of inshallah if we're still around and the Rona don't give I mean they don't have us in concentration camps, but and so we're you got to keep in mind, think of things civilizationally. Look at things from a civilizational perspective, and then you see a whole different aura. It brings a whole different dimension to the conversation if we look at it from a civilizational perspective. And from that perspective, no, we're just starting to touch on these issues. I mean, like okay, Halloween. You and I disagreed on the Halloween thing. I mean, it was. I tried to make my writing kind of respectful because I like you.
No, no,
Okay,
no. Of course, and I
yeah.
understand that it is so, and I do get it. It comes back to what I was just saying now that you see it's sometimes the angle that people are coming from, and my lens is like this. I do in my right.
And I understood. I
Yeah.
understood your fatwa.
Mhm.
I understood your fatwa. No, it makes sense from your perspective, from the people that you have dealt with the most. Okay, they don't care. I just want candy. What the hell? I'm not even, But for somebody who their episodic memory is full of visualizations of what Halloween means and the ghosts and the goblins and the ghouls and the movies and Ghostbusters and Dracula and Bela Lugosi and going back to Frankenstein. So if this is part of your episodic memory,
Mhm.
Frank, well, Halloween represents a totally different thing to you. Let's bring
But
all that.
out of curiosity, Sheikh, like let's
Yes.
say these ghouls, goblins, Frankenstein, witches. Do you really think though people from they don't distinguish between faith and these kind of fairy tales? Like won't they just think, yeah, this is just a muck around, we're just having a bit of.
Well, because we know by Sharia law that some of these fairy tales are based in some parts of reality. Okay, it's accentuated, of course. It's exaggerated for Hollywood's sake and for
Mhm.
fairy tale's sake. But ghouls and goblins, well, ghoul. That's even an Arabic. That's an Arabic word. Ghoul is an Arabic word.
Arabic word, yeah, ghouls, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so we know about earthbound. We know about earthbound souls, arwah al-ardiyah. We know about jinns. We know about there's still remnants of the time of Suleiman. About they made movies about flying carpets and jinns and big. They got the genie in the lamp, all that kind of stuff that did exist during Suleiman's time. So, and we know about witchcraft. We know about magic. That stuff is real. So we don't know to what extent some of the Halloween rituals represent real life shaitani rituals. And so for the American Muslim, he's acutely aware because in our history, we've dealt with that. We've dealt with roots and spells, all that kind of stuff. Especially you come from the South, you come from the from the islands. like the West Indies, then that is part of their culture. Voodoo is part of African culture, right?
Mm.
And so that's bringing all that back. So we're going to
Okay.
be, oh yeah, Halloween is haram, but secretly now we're talking about real taxes. No, listen. I'm an imam on this. I mean, I'm an imam. I mess around with academic stuff, but I'm kind of a frontline imam. So realistically, you're gonna have a Muslim. Listen, man, I don't care what schools or what. I want some candy. My kids want candy. I want to shut them up. The candy's free. Well, I ain't got. Listen, they can go out and get some candy. Go get the candy because that makes the kids happy, and they may come from a family that really doesn't have a whole lot going
Mm.
on. So Halloween represents a day kids can get up, get dressed up, and go out. I remember one of my sons wanted to do Halloween, and we had to, like, you crazy. He said, "Abu, listen." I think he's about 7 or 8, and he said, "Abu, listen. I know all this stuff is. I know it. I know, but Abu, I'm gonna fill this whole thing full of candy, man. Think of all the candy you won't have to buy me." So that one year, I let him go with his mom to. So it was like a control Halloween thing. He didn't dress up, but I understood, and I try to let my kids, you know things from I kind of, because you don't want to get, man. Sometimes you can haram everything, and sometimes things are haram, but the thing is, listen. The Prophet ﷺ said, um, uh, uh, تجاوز عن أمتي الخطأ والنسيان وما استكرهوا عليه. He says, my ummah is pardoned for, how can I call it? He says, my ummah is pardoned for their mistakes, their forgetfulness, and the thing that they've done out of compulsion. So there is a tendency to get so rigid you forget about the fadl. The law says,
Mm.
"Well, not so fadl bainakum." You have to still keep in mind that we're
Yeah.
dealing with a law. A law is not. No, no. I'm gonna that Halloween. You about to go to Jannah, but that chocolate cake. It's not like that. So that's our job. That's your and our job to
Mm.
kind of, even this kind
Sure.
of dialogue kind of
Yeah.
helps people kind of see through. And so we're gonna have to do that kind of
Yeah.
stuff and take the heat for. I take the heat for a lot of my positions now. I take big heat, but I'm old. I'm at a point in my life where, like, I don't care. I have used profanity in the past, Shaykh.
Yeah.
I just now
It's
got
all
to the
good.
I really had to go through some changes with some of my older friends and students and my sisters. You're using profanity on Facebook. I'm like, I'm sorry. I went through stuff. So that's life. That's life. And sometimes it's good for people to see the humanity in us.
Yeah,
They,
absolutely,
they
absolutely.
need
Yeah.
to
I mean,
see
the
so we
human side, the real side, it resonates.
Yeah, they
What's
need to see
real
that so they can
resonates.
and that's nothing. That's sunnah. The Prophet said something. He didn't get dressed up and said, "Okay, these verses came down. Aisha, can you go get my shape up and sure," because no, when he got the verse, he came out. The Prophet was in his
Mm.
tent, just sitting, chilling, and the verse came down. Um, um, يا أيها الناس يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم إن زلزلة الساعة شيء عظيم. So when those verses came down, he was in his tent. He was traveling. He ran outside and said, "Ayuha nas, ittaqu rabbakum inna zalzalat as-sa'ati shay'un adhim." He ran out to tell the people. Yeah, the verse came down, and they're like, "Dude, you ain't even finished, man. Come on back up in here." I'm just saying. So
Yeah.
unrehearsed Islam, I think, for imams and scholars is important.
Well,
That
I like
people
the way you've coined that unrehearsed. I like that. It's a very
listen.
it's a
We have to
natural.
to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala.
Mm.
That's what we have to answer to. That's what we have to answer. And people need to see an Islam that's on the ground, because most people just trying to struggle.
Yeah.
So I don't. We make halal with haram or vice versa, but there's always going to be that. So you're always going to get the
Yeah.
people. Man, listen, people still complaining about me. His profanity, that imam, he wants to open a masjid. That's so. What kind of imam? Listen, I sang a song on Facebook Live the other day.
Okay.
So, listen, I took the lyrics to John McLean's "Bye Bye Miss American." But you ever heard that song?
All right.
Uh,
No, I haven't
okay,
actually.
but they got this song called "Miss American Pie." It's a classic. It came out in 1976 when I was in high school. I used to love that song.
All right.
So I did this song and I replaced the words with "Bye Bye Mrs. Rona, goodbye." Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And so, okay, and
All
so,
right.
hey, I will sing Temptation online, Shaykh. I'll do that. Okay. Hey, listen,
You
and
can
give a
sing it
here.
if you want, Sheikh. Sing it if you
I
want.
need, but some people look at that as that's a
Mm,
sacrilege.
mm,
Somebody texted me and said, "What kind of imam would sing songs on Facebook?" And
yeah.
I texted back. I said, "I don't know any man that sings songs on Facebook."
Uh,
I don't mean no harm, but I'm just saying we are going through a new window of
mhm,
Muslim civilization,
yeah.
and so the kind of conversation that you and I have right now, which may only happen here and there, hopefully by the next 3 or 4 years, imams are going to be talking all over like that,
Yeah.
and then you're going
Just
to get stuff done.
speaking of struggles and tying in with the whole conversation that we've had in the early part of this dialogue about race relations and participation, social participation, now that you brought in the Black Lives Matter movement, do you feel this was a missed opportunity for the Muslim community or not really? Or what are your thoughts on this?
You want my real thoughts? Or you just
Okay,
want this political?
real talk. Go, absolute real talk, Chef.
Listen, I understand Black Lives Matters. I'm not a big supporter of Black Lives Matter. I don't think Muslims need to jump on every political
Okay.
issue. If you're going to jump on it, don't jump on it in the vein that they're bringing it in, because that might be the right. That makes you look like a fool sometimes. Although Muslims like, well, we want to support Black Lives Matter. Listen, my issue with Black Lives Matter, I'm not putting them down. I mean, hey, more power to you. I'm not going to go out there and protest because of police brutality. I'm against it, but I'm more against black on black crime. So I'm saying, listen, if you think that it's bad that for police to kill black people, then it should be even worse for black people to kill black people over nothing in the black neighborhood. Now I got issues with that. Okay, so I believe in like I said, I'm an intellectual jihadist. So if you want me to do some good on something, you need to really have your cards in the right place. And so sometimes Muslims, and then sometimes it's disingenuous, yeah? Because you have some Muslims who's like, okay, because you got to keep thinking we're post 9/11. We're post 9/11. So the post 9/11 narrative is to sanitize the image of Muslim so that the Muslims in America, I'm talking about the immigrant Muslims, man, we are just 100% solid citizens. And the only way you can have the issue with us is that you must be an Islamophobe. Now, most Americans are not going to go for that. They know that's a bunch of crap. And so when I see a black organization like CARE, and I'm not trying to. I like CARE, and I got friends in CARE. So but sometimes they take it as a religion. Like, okay, CARE is an
Mm,
organization; they can be criticized. They do good work. But when a CARE representative is up there talking about Martin Luther King Day, let's go march, Black Lives Matter, and dude, you got racism going on in Muslim America.
subhanallah.
Address that, and then I'm hearing you. So you
Mm.
can't come out on a black issue. You're Arab or you're whatever. I'm just, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
This
no, it's true. It's very real talk. I mean, that is,
years years
yeah.
before I was an imam, I was a political analyst. Did you know that?
No, I didn't, Chef. Wow.
I
Okay.
worked about 20 different political campaigns right here in America.
Isn't it? Wow.
I mean, I wasn't always an analyst. I was a grunt worker. I was a grunt guy. Raise money, knock on doors. I
Mm,
started out fundraising. That's how I started. But I ended up being a statewide organizer. I worked on mayoral campaigns, gubernatorial campaigns, presidential campaigns.
wow.
I used to work a swing vote. I used to do the stats and everything. I worked with.
Very,
I,
very
I
hard
studied
worker,
with
Chef.
I
Very hard
studied with
worker.
Murray Fischel. I studied with Murray Fischel,
Okay.
the late Murray Fischel. He developed uh, uh, the first graduate study for political campaign management at at Kent State University. So the first place in America where you can go and get a master's degree in political campaign management was at Kent State University, and that program was developed under the late Murray Fischel. And I studied. I didn't study me and him, but I'm saying, I studied with him. I was taught by this guy and others. So in America, you got the politics of Islam and the religion of Islam. I think the Imam should know both. Either that or Muslim communities in America, they should have a political wing. Because a lot of times, Muslim Imam, now check this out, check this, you don't like this. Muslim Imams are interfacing with Muslim politicians. So I'm an Imam of a master. I'm an Imam. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know Imams personally. I know Shaykh personally. I know some couple. I know we're friends. Like
Sure.
So I used to be on the executive committee of North American Imams Federation.
Okay.
So when they elected the first executive committee, I was on that committee. So I know Sheikh's person on a one-on-one basis. So it's a different story. But otherwise, I, as an imam, Black American imams don't talk to immigrant imams like we're gonna. Okay, I can't call Imam so and so from this city. Hey, Imam, let's get together and do so and so. He has to go through his board.
Mm.
He can't make a totally independent decision. He can't. He has to answer. So I've been where we were to do Eid, the same day, and we have the meeting in the masjid, and the imams are here, and the imam says, right, Shaykh, alhamdulillah, let's do it. But then next week, the board members there. No, we're we're not going by that siding. So they don't, and it's now fault of the imams because the imam is just kind of like it's a position here. Depends, especially in the community. So we don't have that kind of wide open dialogue. So a lot of times when I say things, and the man may contact me, a Sheikh may. I had a very good friend of mine. He's in Arizona. Very good, popular Sheikh. I mean, seriously, he's my man. But we're friends from 25 years.
Okay. Wow.
We're buddies. So he came, he's a Sheikh. Just be careful, man, because you be talking that stuff, man. What you're saying is right, of course. But you're pushing buttons. And so, but I know that as an intellectual jihadist, that is my term. So you have to push the buttons a little bit so that the ensuing generations can come in with a milder approach. That's just history. That's just Islamic politics. That's just everywhere. That's just the way it works. In order to get dialogue started, sometimes you gotta say, "Damn it, we're gonna talk about it right now." Yeah. And then someone else comes and says, no, let's just talk about it. Oh, okay, I'll talk. But this other guy, that Shaykh Luqman, he cursed us out, he begged us, and he might have been, I don't know this guy. But Shaykh so-and-so, so that's why I said in the beginning when I started talking about racism and coming out with I have an organization called Mosques Without Borders, Shaykh, and maybe you'll let me back on talk about it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
When I first started, I said, listen, we're going to kick the door down. We're going to kick the door down so that other guys can walk in and so on. So some of the conversations I have is just so that other people can have the conversation. When I started talking about racism in Muslim America, that made it easy for someone else to say, well, there is racism. They were scared to talk about it. So sometimes you have to kick the door open in order to start the dialogue. That's just that's the
no, I think it's amazing. Honestly, I really think the fact that you not only champion these things, but you can openly state them, and you're happy to do so confidently. That's necessary. Sheikh, we're gonna be beginning to kind of wrap this up. What I was going to ask is, I know because I know you did tell me that you did have certain things on, but is there some words you'd like to say to the viewers? I mean, something you'd like to kind of wrap up on? Any particular? Is there? Well,
let me say to your viewers, that we just need. First of all, if you want to support any of my work. Go to my Facebook page, Cash App. You can go to my campaign to open the Masjids because we want to get some full page ads so that we can really pressure Masajid to consider other options during the month of Ramadan, because I just can't imagine we're going to go through all of Ramadan with a Masajid cruise. So I have a couple campaigns you can support on Facebook. And also, I want you to visit my blog, which is imamluqman.wordpress.com. A lot of what I talked about on the show today is on my blog. It goes back for years. But as far as the words of advice, listen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ittaqullah wa qulu qawlan sadida, yuslih lakum a'malakum. Have taqwa of Allah, say what's right. I mean, we have to, and I want to say, you got a good guy in Shaykh Abu Layth here, right? And my name is Abu Layth too, right?
Yeah, I get that's awesome.
So I'm also Shaykh
All
Abu
right,
Layth.
two times two, I believe.
But no, listen, I applaud you, man. Seriously, serious business. Because you've sent me salams many times through Brother Wasim. It ain't just first time we talked though, and I knew it would be kind of this dialogue, because I said, that's my man right there. I saw you do something on Facebook. I said, on YouTube. I said, that's my man right there. This dude's done, because you weren't scared to be honest. This is what we're gonna need, and so I want you to continue, man, and like of course you're going to, and hopefully we can have this dialogue again.
Definitely.
Really, what we need to do is have taqwa of Allah. We have to realize that we're living in. This is my view. We're living in the last days. Okay, nobody knows when the hour is. The Prophet said, "Man mas'ul anha bi'alam min as-sa'ili." So we don't know, but we have to recognize the signs. So what do? We should be coming together as a ummah, and people who believe in, because I know at the end of the day you follow Kitab and Sunnah. It ain't like you want a different deen. We should really look at selling some differences through having dialogue, man. Seriously, man, because we have to come up with a little something better that's going to meet the needs of the time we're living in. So that's my advice, inshallah.
That's amazing words. People, the Shaykh, you've heard it from the legend from Ohio, Imam Luqman Ahmad. Visit his blog. It's called one word, imamluqman.wordpress. Is that correct? Yeah, .wordpress. And the Facebook page I will tag in. It's Luqman Ahmad, and you'll see the glamorous image of the Shaykh there as well.
But listen, I will tell you this, Shaykh. I am from Philly. We do come with gangster stock. You know how Philly is, right? That's our thing, right? So thank you. I'm going to go. Thanks for having me on. It's imamluqman.wordpress.com, and of course support whatever we're doing, inshallah. And Shaykh, I hope we have you on again, and we'll
definitely will, inshallah. Take very good care of yourself, Shaykh. Shukran for coming on. Right, viewers as well, I'm going to put up the final slide here. Do click like, share, get this out there. Any messages, do reach out to us. Other than that, have a very good day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.